A lot of people here, so I guess it's the popularity of Riot and not me, which is good. So I work in publishing and marketing. I'm looking around the room. I guess a lot of the guys and girls here are for engineers, developers, etc. Give me hands on the engineers. How many people are engineers or doing engineering? Development, art. Wow. Okay. Publishing, marketing, business side. A few of you. Okay, so you're on my side of the fence. That's good. All right, cool. So today I'm going to give you kind of a TLDR on kind of my journey from uni through to then working in the industry and where I am today. So hopefully the old man at the front here is going to give you a few bits of wisdom, maybe not. But again, afterwards, you can throw any questions at me. I'll stay around for a little bit of time afterwards as well. Also, I'll take questions as we go through. I don't mind you bombarding me as we have a chat and go through this little journey. So I've been a gamer like in my entire life. So from the days of like playing the ZX Spectrum, playing things like Horace and the Spiders, Horace Goes Skiing, I'm showing my age obviously, right through to being like a competitive first-person shooter fan, like running Medal of Honor servers and Battlefield servers for my bedroom, just playing games like continuously. It's always been my passion. And I've worked in and around the industry for probably around about 20 years now. And I started in the creative industry, not within the actual games industry as a whole. And I'll kind of come on to that a bit later on about that was a different route in that gave me the ability to get a foot in the door and start my journey into the industry now. It has been an amazing journey. But I had the opportunity to work with multiple publishers through that route as well, which is really exciting. I was at Activision Blizzard for 7 years, worked on Call of Duty, which is still one of my favourite games, even though the game is inherently broken at the moment if you're playing Modern Warfare. And I'm now the general manager for UK Nordics for Riot Games. And I've been with Riot for about 5 years. I started in the Sydney office in Australia, helped those guys set their office up there and then moved back to the UK to open the UK office and extend our footprint into Europe back in 2017. And it's been a frickin' wild ride. Just a few crazy pictures all the way from like early days of Golden Joysticks, Black Ops 2, first esports events in Cologne, me sat on a big throne of Monster. That's the joys of having a sponsor as a Monster Energy drinks. Right through to doing stupid things like playing the first game of League of Legends underwater in a shark tank in Sydney. Like the industry gives you this great ability to do so many amazing things, and hopefully many of you will experience that. And again, I've experienced it, and it's definitely kept me young, and definitely keeps me really popular with my kids' friends, which is great. So I don't have a lot of text on my slides. I keep things pretty light. I like to keep it open and just have a good chat and talk about stuff. But how do I get off on this journey? And I set off to do archaeology. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Thinking about doing archaeology. But ultimately, like, I was going to do archaeology at Cambridge Uni, and absolutely balls up my A-levels. Balls up my A-levels. My dad was a GM in a chemical company at that time in marketing. And he said, why don't you give marketing a go? It's kind of the science of bullshit, which it probably is, I guess. But so his great advice, I went through clearing, and I went to Southampton University and studied marketing and design. Now, that was a great kind of vocational degree that gave me the practical kind of side of things, using things like Director and Flash, which are the new kind of cutting-edge technologies at that time when CD-ROM was beginning to come into play. But it gave me this amazing experience on emergent tech. And I still had that passion for gaming all the time that was still running through me. And that was now the days of console, like Mega Drive, etc. Spending hours and eating pizza and playing Mario Kart with friends in the halls. But it really paved my way at this point, taking that choice of not being Indiana Jones, I wish I always was Indiana Jones, to going into marketing. And that gave me this great leapfrog into the business. So after studying for 3 years, it kind of came that point for me to choose my craft. And we talk about craft in Riot. And your craft is the thing you want to specialize in, that you take forward into your career, that you can specialize in and people want to hire you for. So your craft is absolutely pivotally important. So always ask yourself, like, where do you want to specialize? So the games industry is vast and complex, right? So you've got QA, quality assurance, and lots of people come in the door in QA. I've known many of my friends who have come in and tested games and ended up in places like GM positions or managing director positions, or even head of development, multiplayer design, etc. They come in with a passion and get a foot in the door through QA. Things like localization, again, massively important in Europe and extending markets. Development and engineering, project management or dev management. And dev management is a massive part of Riot Games. It's something that everyone's absolutely focused on. There's that agile way of working. If you're a really good dev manager, you're worth your weight in gold. Art, publishing and marketing, which is my craft area. Community and influencer, which is also a massive area now, which is becoming even more important. When we look in publishing, things like influencers nowadays, and we all know the names of like Ninja, etc., and Dr. Disrespect that are thrown around in Shroud. These guys are pivotal now for our games becoming successes amongst players all around the world. And the marketing landscape has changed massively from the days of spending a fortune on cinema and TV and print, and now literally using these guys and girls who are super vitally important for our communities to help get our products out there and also keep them alive after we've launched. Talent and HR, again, a really important part of our business, and CDev as well, what we call creative dev, or extending the IP into further places. So if any of you guys are League fans, any League fans? Awesome. Give me some of the names, I'll send you RP afterwards. There you go, there's a promise. For us, for example on League, so we did our L10 event a couple of weeks ago, which is our League 10-year anniversary, and we announced all the great stuff that was coming from League, and also from Riot. So our first-person shooter, Project A, but then more importantly, extensions of the universe, such as our animated series, which we've got coming out, which is called Arcane, which is the code name. But again, that's an example of working in an area like CDev, where you take the IP, use the skills as an artist or a development artist, and extend it into different mediums. And that stuff is super exciting. So there's tons of routes you can do to get into the industry. So you're leaving a university, you need to look at things like work experience. They'll allow you to kind of pick and hone your craft as well. It gives you that perspective to set yourselves up to be absolutely kick-ass employment when you go out there and talk to an employer. So I chose marketing and publishing, like I said before. I can't draw for shit, but I can pitch and sell, so that helps a lot. So I think when I was at uni, I did probably the most important thing in the summer. That wasn't going to Magaluf for Ibiza. It was basically spending 7 weeks of doing work experience in an advertising agency in London. So I got to do this by canvassing multiple agencies all across the London boroughs, just basically throwing myself out there to say, please, just employ me for 7 weeks. I'll do whatever it takes, and I'll work for you for free, and I'll get on with it, and I'll do anything from make the tea, photocopy. Yeah, we had photocopiers then, all the way through to getting involved in client pitches. But that, to me, gave me massive exposure to multiple clients, multiple types of working, different types of individuals, different types of leadership styles. But what it gave me is something to put on a CV when I left the uni, along with my degree, that gave me the upper hand on other candidates that were leaving at that time. And I can't say any more, it's absolutely vital. If you can get that, it's super important. Now, I know it's super difficult as well to get into publishers for work experience. I have no end of people, especially in the UK, ask, hey, can I come on a graduate scheme? Can I do X, Y, and Z? And as we're not a development studio here in the UK, we can't offer those kind of exposures to people. But do go out there, do canvass the amount of developers we have in the UK. Look at publishers that have graduate schemes and try and inject yourself into those schemes anywhere you can. And it will give you that upper hand when you come to go out the door and place a CV in front of somebody. So it is super hard. Again, look, and also you may need to look away from the UK. So think about if you're going to spend the summer away somewhere, maybe you go to Eastern Europe to development student in Europe. Maybe go to even into Asia or into North America. Open the door, look around what's available, and really get yourselves out there and try to do this and get that upper hand on the other candidates that are out there fighting for a job that you're going to want. So I had my craft. I had some experience in my belt and some client names to list on my CV, and that really helped me score my first job. So when I came out of university in 1996, yes, I'm bloody old, I landed a role at Southampton agency called Lawton Communications. Sounds like a solicitor's now. But again, I was an account exec, working on clients like boat paint, used car sales, the Isle of Wight ferry. If anybody ever been in the Isle of Wight on the Red Funnel ferry, I used to do all the marketing on that. I printed the price wrongly many times and gave people very cheap tickets. And I learned many lessons through poor attention to detail and generally not doing a very good job on print, which is nowadays, if you work in digital, you can change at the click of a button. Whereas you do a big freaking 48-sheet poster with a price on it, you can't change it very quickly. But I spent 10 years there working on clients all across these different sectors. And during those 10 years, I helped move that agency from print, TV, outdoor to digital. Now, adaptability is key. So as you leave university and you go into your chosen craft, you go into business, you need to adapt all the time. If you don't adapt, you become kind of out of date. And it becomes even more important in our industry as everything changes so quickly. Now, whether that's going from a box product to games as a service, these things change rapidly. And our games change on a daily basis, even on an hourly basis, depending on the meta and depending on how quickly you patch. So I moved that agency on into the digital age, and I rebranded them from Lawton Communications to 5x5. Now, anybody know what 5x5 means? No? Okay. I'm an ex-military person, so 5x5 means a signal that has perfect clarity and perfect strength. So for a communications agency, it kind of works, and it's kind of cool. And if you love Aliens, the film, probably I'm old again, I love the films from the 80s. There's a great saying in that, is 5x5 is used in that. And again, it was part of my kind of passion. I'm a big Aliens fan, so I wanted to bring that into the name as well. But that allowed me to then start to work on clients that I had a passion for. I was always a gamer, still a gamer. This time I was playing Unreal Tournament, Medal of Honor, Battlefield, all of the games that I loved from all my favourite publishers. So what I thought was I'm going to go after these guys and make them come to our agency and become clients of our agency. And I did that within a couple of years, and I had likes of THQ, obviously gone now, but they were a great publisher at that time, EA, Acti, and Vivendi, working across games like Medal of Honor, Stalker, COD, World of Warcraft, and multiple other games. During that time, I kind of went from that emergent time of like viral video, the internet. Whoa, YouTube suddenly came aboard, which is crazy. All these new platforms that just enabled us to get brands out there and have loads of fun with our IP, but also my client's IP. I won multiple awards as well whilst I was at these agencies, which again gave me great fodder when I was talking to publishers later on, like the Cannes Golden Lion. I also got one of my less notable awards, which was the worst TV ad for THQ's Juiced racing game. Don't ever Google and find it, because I'll probably get fired if you share it, but it was horrendous and incredibly sexist. But again, like one of those things you do have a big learning experience as you go through your career. But one thing I felt when I was working in this area was I felt disconnected, because I had such a passion for the games I was working on as a player, but they weren't mine. I didn't own the IP. I didn't own the project. I was just there as a cog in the wheel of launch. And I wanted to change that, and I wanted to get into the industry, and I always wanted to be within the games industry. And this gave me this amazing time to be able to take that step forward and move into becoming part of the actual industry itself. Again, you've got to look for alternative ways to get in sometimes. Sometimes you can't just walk into a UB, a Vivendi, Acti, etc., and get that job you want. You need to look for those alternative entries into the industry. So it was my big break. I was working across all of these publishers, and Activision came and poached me. So I was a hardcore FPS player. I love Call of Duty, still love Call of Duty, but I probably knew Call of Duty better than the brand managers at Activision, which was a great advantage. So I could go and talk to that client and wax lyrical about the game, and they saw me as an asset, so they pulled me into the business. So they came and grabbed me, and I worked on from COD 3 all the way through, and I've got some examples of the different games I worked on, but ultimately that gave me that point to now join the industry, and it got me that foot in the door, which is fantastic. I took the role as an EU digital marketing manager, and that gave me the ability to work across all of the products in the portfolio. So back in the day at Acti, they had tons and tons of products, right from Guitar Hero, they had the LucasArts brands, so the Star Wars brands, so I got this great exposure to multiple different licensees and different brands. My claim to fame during that period is I peed in George Lucas's toilet in the Skywalker Ranch in California, and I've got a picture of me doing it. So that's one thing I've kept. It's on Facebook somewhere, in there, I don't know where, but it's definitely there. That was one of my biggest crowning moments of working on LucasArts. So again, working on multiple things, and it was unique, and I was unique in my role. Now, when you look at a lot of publishers, and this is not saying that all publishers are evil or not necessarily the right level or standards, but most of the people that are there aren't hardcore gamers. And I'll talk about how Riot perceives this in a second. But if you're a player and you're a hardcore gamer and you're player focused, you have the upper hand on most of the people within those businesses already. Because you know how to think like a player, you know how to develop, design, market to a player, and also make the right decisions that are player focused. And that's absolutely key. Whatever you do, never lose that. So know your audience, and if you're even better, right, you are your audience. And again, you're all playing games here, whatever they are, from WoW right through the League, COD, whatever you're playing, you're all players, and you know what a player wants to get out of a game and out of an ecosystem. So my passion was COD, and that took me on this digital journey as well. So I started on box products, and I started to look at DLC, so downloadable content. So that was when map packs were becoming the big thing. Every year we did like 4 map packs for COD. We did a big extended service called Call of Duty Elite. And that gave me this great kind of extension into games as a service. And that was when the industry was changing. And again, talking about adaptability, is having that ability to spot what's coming up and what's going to be important. At that point, it's like, well, how do we extend the life of our products so we're not just going box product launch, massive drop off and trough? How do you extend the people who are playing your game to always play it, always on, for years to come? And that took me through right from working on like COD 4, which is still probably the best Call of Duty, all the way through to Advanced Warfare and then on to Call of Duty Elite, what we call GAS, which is Games as a Service. And again, that adaptability and that learning helped me move from physical to digital and then games as a service. And again, player focus was always something I really wanted to get hold of and really wanted to see in a publisher. Activision, as much as everybody probably in this room probably dislikes them, because they seem to be very monetary focused, don't have as much player focus. So they don't necessarily make decisions that are around the player. They make decisions around their shareholders or maximising revenue for their shareholders, which is fine, it's great, but they do tend to forget about the player. And the player is the most important part of that process. Forget about the player, you basically lose your franchise, you lose your brand, and you lose your player base. So I was always striving and looking for that next developer or that next publisher that could give me that ability to work for someone who was so passionate about players that they would put that first and ahead of everything else, ahead of revenue, ahead of releasing something on time, but making sure it was right for the player. So when it was released, everyone absolutely celebrated it, and Riot was that place. Everyone loves a Poro, right? The industry moves quickly, like I said. So games as a service is huge, and League was at the forefront there. And again, allowing you to have that adaptability, moving into those areas of games as a service is key. And again, every game that pretty much everyone works on now has a games as a service component. Otherwise, it can't compete. So follow your passion. Do amazing shit for players. And again, just think about what you want to do as you move through in your careers. But always do what's right for the player. You should always play like a player, think like a player, and publish like a player. And if that comes over in your communication to prospective employees and publishers and developers, it will pay off in absolute spades. So when I came back to Riot, I had to hire a huge team, a reasonably small team, but ultimately within Riot, our hiring process is incredibly rigorous. So we vet people very deeply. It takes a lot of time. Interviews take a lot of time. Panels take a lot of time. And we hold a very, very high bar to bring people in that align to our values and align to our culture. So when you're all thinking about leaving uni, thinking about applying, do your homework for your role. Look at the company, look at its values, look at its history, look at its recent news. Play the game you're going to work on. You wouldn't believe the amount of people I've interviewed who will come and talk to me and have never touched League. Now, as a player-focused business, if someone comes along and says, yeah, I really want to join Riot, they're amazing, they're great. Have you ever played League? No, never played League. All right, fine. So there are some roles where playing the game is not necessary, but please, 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 play the game that you are going to talk to a publisher about. Learn it, learn its pitfalls, be able to talk intelligently about it, give feedback in an intelligent way. Don't necessarily be a fanboy or fangirl, because that can sometimes come over a little bit too much. But do play the game. Understand the ecosystem, understand the environment, and that will allow you to communicate and connect with your interviewee very, very easily. Make sure your CV, and more importantly, LinkedIn is bulletproof, and I'll talk more about this in a minute. And take that knowledge with you and go to that interview, but be first and foremost, be yourself. You just got to go in, be absolutely kind of honourable to you, just be absolutely honest and open, but be yourself always in an interview. And if you know someone in the chosen publisher you're going to talk to, or developer you're going to talk to, use them to get a feel for the business, get a feel for what you should be talking about, how you should be presenting yourself, what's important to individuals in that business. And it gives you that upper hand. So use your resources well. So promoting yourself positively is key, right? So LinkedIn, everyone uses LinkedIn there, right? They use it to stalk people, not in a nasty way, obviously, but stalk prospective employees, prospective candidates. I use it all the time. So the last 2 years, I've interviewed like 200 plus people all across the world, from Belarus to Cyprus, North America, France, and all these people I've hired into the business. But the first place I always go to is LinkedIn. I barely ever read a CV. A CV to me now is like a dead old thing that people send around in Word that they haven't looked at for the last couple of years, that they forget to change the date on or change their address on. LinkedIn is the most powerful tool that you can get your hands on and use to go out there and connect with publishers and developers and get yourself out there and get yourself recognized. So make sure it's as comprehensive as possible. It has as many examples on there as possible, how you can go deep on there and show off what you've done, your work. Use it as your personal profile page that people will learn so much from, that want to take you over the other candidate. So the first place I always go to is LinkedIn. I always check it against the CV as well, make sure the dates match up, and then obviously I can question, like, oh, why does this date not match here? And you use it as a way of going in. So that's why I throw away the CV, focus on your LinkedIn. Our process at Riot for interviewing and bringing candidates on can be really long. My process took 12 months to come to Riot. So you can imagine like an interview process of 12 months is pretty rigorous. So you go super deep. You go through lots of different interviews, lots of different individuals. It could be ranging from like the facilities manager right through to the office manager to the CEO or Brandon and Mark who basically started Riot. But ultimately they're pinning you and talking to you about specific cultural or company relevant elements they want to see you match up to, and you can actually collaborate with them on in the future. So interviews are rough, right? And like I said, the Riot process can take a long time and it's getting quicker. So I signed in 12 months and got to Sydney literally 12 months after starting the process, which is pretty rigorous. So be prepared to go long and hard, but be dedicated to the process and do your homework so you can go in and speak confidently about what it is you want to get out and what it is you want to go to with that prospective employee. So be prepared. So practice with a friend your interview techniques, what you want to talk about, how you present yourself when you go along to these interviews. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance is always the thing I use. So just take your time. Spend time with your portfolio if you've got work to show off. Talk about how you present it and bounce it off another individual. It's the best way to get feedback. There's questions that you know are going to come up, right? So make sure you've done the homework on the publisher, the dev, so you can think about your answers. Questions like, why do you want to work for us? Why the UK are all standard, right? But there are different answers. So if I ask for individuals like, why do you want to come and work at Riot? If someone says to me, I want to work at Riot because they're the biggest games brand in the world, that to me raises a flag in absolutely straight away, okay? So if you were to then say to me, I want to come and work at Riot because I want to do amazing things for players, or I want to change the balance system on League, I want to change a champion, or I want to change this or that, because I want to make it better for players, that to me automatically says you have the right mentality for working with us, and also the right mentality to make the right decisions. Just wanting to work for the biggest brand doesn't mean that's the right answer. Obviously, everyone wants to work for the biggest brand and stick on their CV, but you want to do cool shit for players and deliver amazing things. So there are also some freaking horrible questions as well that people like to answer, and you need to think about those as well. Get yourselves prepared. Like I use horrible ones like, what was your worst hire? What was your best hire? What was your best decision you ever made? What was the worst decision you ever made? Have you ever fired anyone and why? And try and needle in deeper and deeper to understand the individual. But you'll probably get some of these questions even as you go through into early roles. We always do really great ones with, especially in games as a service, like if you could buy power in League of Legends, would you do it to get extra revenue on a monthly basis? I love some of the answers you get. Most of the time people say no because it breaks the game and it's pay to win, but you do get some interesting examples. And then it's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, but then getting someone to justify and give us their thought process around why they said yes or no to that gives you an understanding of their critical thinking. And that's vitally important in any role within business. Things like biggest risk you've ever taken. Again, that can be in your personal life or it could be in work life. And again, it shows your character. And it's really important. And one of the worst ones is like, what would your boss say about you? What would your mum say about you? What would your best friend say about you? And there's always the worst one, which is if you were an animal, what animal would you be? Which is a terrible interview question. But I was asked it when I went to Activision, and I said I was a dolphin. I don't know why. I think it was something to do with dolphins kill sharks, and I can't remember what it was, but they're also intelligent. But I'm not necessarily saying I'm intelligent either, but I can kill a shark. I always look at things like critical thinking, player empathy, business acumen, communication and collaboration. All these things can be individual interviews that you need to prepare for, where you won't get told you're going into an interview around communication and collaboration, but that individual on the end of the phone or on the Skype call may be doing that with you. And again, it applies to all roles, whether it's development or publishing, art, etc. We want to know that these individuals have these types of strengths. So I'm also keen to understand more around like candidates' life. So life is important, not just work. It's also what they do in their personal life. Like, they have any hobbies or interests. That's all really important stuff around culture and team. Some other tips, right? Don't ever ask about salary in the first interview. It's the first thing that if someone ever asked me about salary in the first interview, I probably would never move them forward to the next interview. One of the reasons is that if you're coming in asking about salary, you're not thinking about what you're going to do within that business. So you want to be focused on, I want to join this business, don't care what the salary is, I want to kick ass, I want to deliver, and I want to go up through the ranks and do an amazing job for publisher AB, developer ABC. So don't ask about salary, just assume you're going to get a salary and it's going to be amazing, and just go in there and go all in. Don't ask about benefits in the first interviews. Don't ever be late. I mean, that's an obvious one, right? But again, people turn up late. Doesn't matter what the position is. I've had senior guys and girls turn up like 10, 15 minutes late for interviews. There's just no excuse for it. Don't talk too much. Be direct and be to the point. Be very succinct. Think about your answers. If you don't know the answer, don't be afraid to say, no, I don't know, and I'll come back to it. That's absolutely key. I think I went to an interview in LA and I fucked it up massively. And I got asked the maths question. I'm terrible at maths. I can do it if you give me a spreadsheet. If you ask me to do it on a board now, I crumble and cry. I just cannot do it. And this guy asked me to do a break-even point for a price point over a period of time, and I just couldn't do it. And I just crumbled it. And it took me an hour, and I stood there for an hour. They just sat there and watched as I wrote this thing down over and over again, just crying into my water. I couldn't do it. So I got to the airport in LA, and I did it on a spreadsheet and sent it back to the guys and said, look, I'm sorry I fucked it up. Here is the workings. Here's the break-even point. I'm sorry. Boom. I got the job because ultimately what I did is went back and said, look, this isn't my strength. I can't do maths in front of, if you ask me now, I'll probably screw it up. I can't do maths under pressure in front of people, but I can do it if you do it behind a screen on a spreadsheet. So everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and don't be afraid to admit them and then follow up if you don't know a question. Basic stuff like if you're using a webcam or a mic, make sure it works. Don't come on a call and spend 10 minutes going, I can't fucking get it to work. It's the worst thing ever. And prepare yourself. And then also, like I said before, just be yourself and have a great time on the interview and you'll do well. So, everyone loves Garen, right? So use your tools to your advantage, right? Stalk the company you want to join on LinkedIn and use that for your sourcing. It's absolutely key, right? Upgrade to premium if you have the money. I know as students it's tight, but premium is amazing. So you can see who's stalking you. So I do it all the time. I see who's looking at my profile and I'll message them and say, oh, you look at my profile. What are you interested in? So literally you can see who's looking at you. So again, it's sometimes worth the money. Maybe it's a Christmas present. Ask me mum and dad's, buy me LinkedIn Premium. Keep a track of who you've talked to and who you've reached out to so you don't duplicate. There's nothing worse than reaching out to somebody and then you do it again and again and again. And it drives people nuts, especially when people are time poor. Use tools like providers like UKIE offer, like the games map of the UK. You can see where developers are located, where publishers are located. There's a cool little tools out there that give you the ability to kind of do some sourcing. Sign up to publisher recruitment sites, obvious. Sign up to local recruitment agencies, obvious. Attend events like Develop, etc. Don't use game shows like Gamescom to try and score a job. I know they're amazing, amazing events. They're bright, glitzy, loads of developers there. But what are those developers and publishers doing? Running around like blue-ass flies, trying to deliver shows to customers and players. And they have very limited times. If you're going to use those kind of events, try and build like an event outside of it. So meet someone at a pub in the evening, go to a restaurant. Don't try and do it on the show floor. It's just so busy. So focus your efforts around kind of externalizing those kind of events. And use all the contacts you have and flaunt them to your advantage. That's all I'll say. So I know you don't bombard me necessarily on LinkedIn, but again, I will help people where and when I can. I'll push you people in different directions. I help as many people as I can with connecting people to different developers, etc. But again, use your connections to your absolute advantage and always use that. It's your absolute advantage. So, anybody watch Worlds at the weekend? Yeah, poor old GT. I was there in Paris, I cried. So GT lost. Never going to get European champions. So basically, get out there. Be the next generation of UK video games execs, developers, community managers, engineers, whatever it is you want to do. Go out there. Go crazy. Go grab this by, well, I'm not going to say that word because it's probably not read PC, but just go out there and grab it with both hands, right, and do the best you can. We need the UK to keep prospering in the games industry, and we can only do it through amazing individuals like yourselves who are doing degrees at universities like this, all across the UK, that can go out there and still put the UK on the map and continue to put the UK on the map as one of the best places to publish and develop video games. So my journey was kind of unconventional, but it got me to where I am today. And again, look, you just got to challenge convention all the time, and it's something we talk a lot about at Riot, is challenging convention. Do what you need to do to get where you need to get to. Be passionate, be driven, be player-focused, and just be yourselves. So look, I think my time is up. It's 10:02, so I want to thank you for the time. Thank you for listening. So if you've got any questions, I don't know if there's time to do questions, but I would be open. So thank you.
Hi, yeah. So I just wanted your take from a marketing background. What do you say to the notion that majority of like games marketing now rides on things like YouTube and Twitch, but it's also self-destructive because if you're the type of games that, and we've seen from like things like Apocalypse and whatnot, if you're the type of games that has controversial things, you get suppressed under fire. So in a way that now, because social, like in the internet and social media has made it easier for developers to like promote their games, but in another way, it's restricted the type of games that they can promote.
Yeah, interesting. I think like influencers are vitally important to developers and publishers. Like a Riot stance is like we don't go out there and pay our influencers, for example, to promote our games. We build programs that encourage them to work with us. They get rewarded, obviously, for content they produce, but they also get involved in amazing events. So they get first come, first served basis on certain things. So if you look at examples of like EA and Apex, for example, right, they paid like all their key influencers millions of dollars in the first few days. So they saw a huge spike and then dropped off a cliff. So I get it. I guess the question was more around like the more kind of edgy material, or yeah. So I mean, what would you class as an edgy game? I mean, I think pretty much if you look at anything 18 plus, it's like a Call of Duty kind of edgy, or what kind of edgy?
I was just wondering because that's the thing, that's not defined.
Yeah.
Because I think some of the criteria was if it has explosions
Okay.
shows blood.
Yeah.
Or things like that. So
Yeah,
I was just kind of like.
So there's obviously restrictions that YouTube will put behind that kind of stuff. They'll block video content, etc. So that becomes harder to navigate. Again, you just got to think about how you're presenting your product to your players and what kind of product you're producing, and the influencers you select and the channels you select. And it does make marketing it more complicated and publishing a game more complicated. You go to a place like China, it gets even more complicated when it comes to things like blood or zombies or the undead, etc. It basically changes the landscape completely. Or if you're publishing in Germany, where USK is so strict, you have to change the blood from red to green, that kind of stuff. So it can get vastly complicated. But I think the more we do around like globalization of products that allows you to ship it day and day across all markets is key. And that's cultural understanding as well, not just platform understanding around marketing and publishing as well. May have been convoluted, I'm sorry. But
you mentioned you often don't look at someone's CV, you just go straight to their LinkedIn. You did mention, that you compare stuff to their CV, do these dates match up? But what exactly are you looking for in the LinkedIn? Like, what makes a good LinkedIn profile versus a bad LinkedIn profile from what you're looking at?
So I guess a good LinkedIn profile is, I could show you mine as an example. I'm not saying mine is a.
Would you hire yourself?
Well, probably not, no. I can't. I'll pull it up. Let me pull it up right now. I won't do it now. It'll things along. But ultimately, like, examples of work is key. Detail around the job role, what you did. Recommendations is absolutely vital, right? So everywhere you've worked, before you even leave or make a decision to leave, get recommendations as you go through your journey at that place. So if you do an amazing job on a project and you've shipped it, get recommendations from your dev manager, from your exec producer, etc., and get those down straight away. So as you're going along, you're building the story up on your LinkedIn, that any time people come back to it, it's evolving and constantly changing. Change the header, change your profile picture, make sure all of your descriptions are clear and concise. Making sure it's the full history of where you've worked. Like I said about the dates matching up, I always make sure I say that because I have many people who come here and their dates just completely different. I'm like, well, why weren't you here when you said you were here? And then you start to, I haven't updated the CV. That's why I discredit the CV. I'd rather focus on LinkedIn because it's an evolving platform, right? So yeah, it's the detail, it's the data, it's examples of work. If you're doing volunteering, if you work for any associations, put that in there as well because it gives a great picture of an individual. So detail is key, but not like, so it's a huge freaking essay that it takes me hours to read, but just good, concise data around like what your role was, the things you worked on, your key responsibilities, when you worked there, recommendations done, and maybe some examples of work. But it's an amazing platform if you can get it to work for you. Yeah. Does that work? Yeah?
Yeah,
cool.
That was great.
One more question. So this one's more about when you were asking for, when you were saying about, like not being a fanboy or a fangirl
Yeah.
about a studio. So as an artist, if you really admire a studio and you have done for years, like the things that they've done and contributed to the gaming industry and just how their studio works, and it just sounds like a place that's amazing to work for. What do you do when you really, really, really want to work for a place, but your art style might not match up to what they're doing?
I think you've got to think about their long tail production cycle. Right? They probably have another game in the pipeline or an IP they're developing that will match that art style that you maybe are developing, right? So I'm not an art expert, right? So I see the art when I walk around like the campus in LA and I see the teams, what they're working on, and it's incredible. And we have various different types of art style as well. If you look at Project, which is a Project A, which it's very different to our League universe. So we have very different IPs. So that comes from developers and artists that have worked on League who have transferred their skills back to a different IP as well. So I wouldn't block yourself by saying, well, oh, my stuff doesn't match exactly, because it could be what they're looking for the next product they've got coming down the line. So I would still go in like super passionate, show off your portfolio, even though it doesn't exactly match what they're doing at that present time.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, guys.